100 years of Moody Radio continues today with our tribute and salute to the people who got you up, started your day with a song, a smile or two, and launched you into the day with a biblical mindset. That is still going on today, and I think it's the most important part of the day, really, for any radio station or network. The morning show sets the tone for the entire day. So you're going to hear some voices from the past as we honor those who got up early, like Bob Devine in Cleveland. What a tenure he had at WCRF. And I want you to be thinking of your morning moment, something you remember, some encouragement that stuck in your soul. And whenever it was, 50 years ago or this morning, give thanks to God for His morning kindness through Moody Radio. Let's get started with the program From the Heart to the Heart for the Heart. We call it Chris Fabry Live. Online, chrisfabrylive.org. And don't forget those behind the scenes. I speak for morning hosts through the decades. You would not have heard any Moody Radio morning program had it not been for those who supported the hosts through the years. Today we thank Chris Seagard in for Ryan McConaughey. Trish is our producer. Lisa's helping out. Josh will be answering your calls. To begin, I welcome my erstwhile compadre from the morning program in the 90s. He will be my anchor throughout this hour. You know him from Sound of Majesty, which you can still hear online. You may remember him from his days of hosting Primetime America, Inside Look, Radio School of the Bible, the one, the only, Greg Wheatley. Hey, Greg, how are you?
Oh, Chris, it's so good to be back with you. You name all those programs. I think, I couldn't last on any of them. They kept kicking me off the program and had to give me a new one. So
you were so good, they would just keep piling them on. Okay, so when you started at Moody, you eventually sat in with Bob Murphin. He was a mainstay of Moody Radio for many, many years. Is that right?
I did. When I hired in, interestingly, when I came on to WMBI, I came as assistant manager. And then I had very little airtime at that point. A little while after that, I kind of sat in with Bob, helped to produce the program, kind of a co-host light,
Sure.
I would guess.
Yes.
Anybody's light compared to Bob Murphy.
Okay. If people have never heard Bob, you're going to have to explain to them. But I asked Andrew the other day, I said, what do you remember about Bob? Because she would engineer the morning program sometimes. And she said he would put his head down and he would just wave his hand in the air to start the music going. That's what she remembers about him. What do you remember?
That is true. I remember that. Yeah. Bob was a force to be reckoned with. People absolutely loved Bob Murphin. And I'm sure those who, are still with us and remember him still would say that. He just was a character, and always up, always alive, always cheery, and for a melancholy guy like me,
too. Right?
Kind of down on the farm, kind of homey, but just an amazing force at WMBI.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to go to the co-author of the fantastic new book, This is Moody Radio. Our thank you right now, if you support us with a gift of any amount, go to chrisfabrylive.org. Our resident historian and collaborator, Phil Shappard, who started, I believe, in 1981 at WDLM in the Quad Cities. He retired from Moody Radio in 2020. Phil, welcome back. Now, take me to 1926 was the first time that we went on the air. But in the 20s and 30s, was there a morning program on Moody Radio?
Well, hi, Chris. Yes, there was. In fact, the usual schedule was 10:30. Started at 10:30 in the morning and went for about an hour. But they turned on the transmitters at 7 a.m. for a 40-minute program called the Family Altar League. It was actually an organization that was located right next to the Institute, and a man by the name of John Meredith was the host of that. And he had an objective. I found in the January 1927 Moody Monthly magazine, he said these 40 minutes on the radio are changing the lives of many people who are learning to start the day with prayer and Bible reading.
Wow.
So it was a devotional type of a program beginning. But the last 10 minutes were for the kids. He called them the early birds. And so he had a message. So he only had 40 minutes. I mean, you get an hour each day. He only had 40 minutes, and he tried to do everything he could to reach people with the Word of God and encourage them to, get them going in the morning.
toward the end of the 1930s, a program debuted. This was in April of 1939. Here's a little taste of that.
And good morning. This is Beverly Shea bringing you hymns from the chapel. Don Husted is at the organ to accompany us in these sacred songs.
All right, I'll jump in there on Bev Shea because we're going to hear him again here in just a minute. So hymns from the chapel, there is, starting in 1939, you think what was on the cusp of happening in the world at that time, Phil?
Well, Europe was in World War II, and those in America were feeling that, and they were sensing that the world is really melting down, and so there was a need for encouragement. And it was in 1942 that the idea of having a morning program, an extended time to give news and information, devotional encouragement, a lighter, let's just say a lighter feel, as we know today. Serious at times, but yet lighter to get people going. That commenced right in the early days of World War II in America.
Okay, let's jump to the 70s. We talked about Bob Murphin, who makes your morning, the last time that you were here, that contest. But he didn't start in the 70s. He started in the late 40s on the morning program. Is that true?
Yes, actually, Bob was the youth pastor at Moody Memorial Church, and quite a popular guy even then. We have some video of him leading, singing on the church. The church actually had a radio program themselves, but Bob was involved in radio early on. 1949, he took the place of Robert Gerdes. Robert Gerdes went on to work in Christian films. But Bob was entrenched there. Bob was also an author. 1951, Moody Press, now Moody Publishers, published Ideas and Programs for Christian Youth Leaders. And Bob had some pretty interesting ideas about reaching youth.
He was very animated, too. He's getting you up and all that. In 1970, he came back, and this clip, he's a little more reserved, but here's a little bit from Morning Clock with Bob Murphin.
4.5 after 8, the temperature's up. Our 8 o'clock reading, 69 now, as we push on up toward that 90 mark for today. You can just figure by the time that thing really begins to go up, it's going to go right straight up, isn't it? Earlier today, we were chatting with Bev Shea. We had some of his songs on his new record called The Old Rugged Cross. Through the years, you've become quite contemporary, Bev, in some of your songs and so, but basically, I get the feel you still like to come back and do the old ones well.
Well, I like to be realistic with my age class, and I do appreciate the newer singers. Hear Doug Oldham and Dave Boyer and Frank Boggs sings so well, and then you have some of the female singers I hear on the station now and then.
Yeah.
We have Evie, who works with us on Crusades quite a bit.
Yes. You enjoy Evie. She's a remarkable young lady.
She really is. She's just about 22, going on 23 now, and she's, just sort of a kid-like, but she's truly loves the Lord, and she's a praying girl.
Yeah. You mentioned the youthfulness of her, but sometimes I get the feeling that she has lived and is living at a deeper level with the Lord than contemporary people.
She gave me a recording that she made in Sweden when she was age 15, and on it she has the I'd Rather Have Jesus in Swedish.
Oh.
And the whole record, of course, is in Swedish, and but it's amazing what's happening to her, and she does give praise to God for all of this.
Yeah.
That right there, you can hear what Bob would do is kind of lean in and talk just like you felt like you're around the table with him when he had a guest on, right, Phil?
Well, it was, and I too engineered his program at times, and he had the strangest cues. I would engineer him in the morning time, and I would engineer Jim Warren in the afternoon, and there were miscues at times between learning what one wanted and the other one expected.
Yes, but Bob was, as Greg was saying a minute ago, he had such character, and he had such color with everything. And coming from the farm, he could tell the stories, that happened to us on the farm, as well as get down to theological truth. And as he played the songs and got people up in the morning.
Well,
right?
Bob could he could take any news item and turn it around into a presentation of the gospel. I can't remember the story, but there was one about a whale, and it was it was quite a tale. Let me share with you something that he did back in the 1940s. He had the idea to get kids to come to church. His idea, and he put this in the Chicago Tribune, his plan was to give each child who brought at least 2 children a kitten. And so he was giving kittens away to get kids to come to church. Obviously, the objective was to bring kids in to hear the gospel, but that was Bob Murfin.
Yes, that's exactly it. The other thing he did was a cup of cold water. And I remember when Andrea was engineering and they didn't have someone that they wanted to pinpoint for this. And she said, well, my brother's in the Navy and he's over in Subic Bay in the Philippines. And so they gave her brother's address at Subic Bay. And months later, he said, what in the world did you do? People think I'm a celebrity over here. I'm getting sacks and sacks of mail from people in Chicago. And he couldn't believe the response of the people that were writing in. That's Bob Murfin. And if you were in Cleveland, Bob Devine and the Clock Watcher program got you up in the morning, as well as Nature Corner and Storybook Room. We're going to take a break. Phil, thanks for your work on this book.
Right.
This is Moody Radio, 100 years proclaiming the gospel. Our thank you right now, chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. More straight ahead on Moody Radio.
Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus.
We are paying tribute to that which has gone before us here at Moody Radio. From 1926 to the present, many people have invested time, talent, and treasure, and a fair amount of caffeine in order to get you up in the morning. And the first guest that I had here, Greg Wheatley, worked with me in the 90s. Actually, Greg, we started on the day that Dan Rather and Connie Chung began with CBS News together. This is a big experiment. And we lasted longer than they did, which I think is our claim to fame, don't you?
Well, it is. I mean, what an auspicious beginning, right? But we outlasted them.
So what is your morning moment? I'm asking everybody to give me one little snapshot of the morning that you remember.
You know, there's so many, Chris, so many. Every day was a moment. The one I think, and as soon as I say this, you're going to go, oh, yeah. You had to sort of be up a little before mornings began to get this one. But I arrived one morning, and there was nobody there. There was no engineer. Something had happened to our engineer. Chris, I think a lot of people know that sometimes you worked from a home studio, and so you weren't there. But that was expected. But no engineer. Nobody.
Even when I was there, I wasn't there.
Even when you were there. But, you know, that's another story. But no one there. And so you have to understand, I had not been in front of an audio board, at least not at that one, in a long time. As Bob Murfin used to say, he said, I make it a point to not learn this board. But I did not know what I was doing. And so it came time for the program to start, and I could not figure out what to do. There are recordings extant of that moment. And it was just one awful moment. And, you know, the panic you could hear it in my voice, right?
Yes.
What do I do here? So that's my moment.
And those were extrapolated over many times in many different situations. Do you remember when Peter Jennings came on the program with us?
Oh, yes. I still have a recording of that. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I remember the argument that we had an hour before it, where I wanted to do a call in about. Yeah, and it was because I always went a little to the goofier side than you did, and that's one of the things I loved about working with you is you were kind of the straight-laced guy. Though as I got to know you more, it's like you had such fun. We had fun with words. We had all kinds of fun, but there were moments of friction that we had to work out, just like any family, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We could name some others, but we won't. I'm trying to remember now what our debate was about Peter Jennings. Was it what we wanted to do with the interview?
Yeah, no, it was. I wanted people to call in and ask and suggest questions that would be kind of funny, silly, not
before
to
we got there.
Yeah, not to ask him, but to just say, "Hey, what would you ask?" Shoe size and that kind of thing. And you thought, "No, no, we shouldn't do that," and we didn't. And I think you were right, looking back. But I was kind of hurt.
Well, I hope you've forgiven me.
I have, but I brought it up here today to say, as I listen back to the audio that we have, I hear people who, first of all, like in a morning program is like going to battle every day with yourself, as well as all of the elements to get up, and to do this thing. And if you are working with people that you really like, that is a plus. And all of the morning shows that you're going to hear about here today, that has happened. These people really care about each other. And the next one, Chris, do you have the clip? This is from the morning program from the we stopped in 99, Greg, and then Mark and Dave came on after us, and here's what it sounded like.
I drove past, you did too, past Comiskey this morning.
Yes.
And they're still cleaning up after the ball game last night. I think they have, I think I saw a promotion there for Maglio Ordonez wobbly heads.
Yeah. They're called bobblehead dolls.
Oh, bobblehead dolls.
Yes, yeah.
They're going to give those away at an upcoming game here?
Yeah.
Are those things that we used to see that kind of sit in the back window and kind of just
you bounce up and down?
Bounce up and down.
They were big back in the 60s.
They
a friend of mine still has some like Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle ones. From a long time ago. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking that when our next chair came around.
It'd be kind of fun.
Kind of have maybe, I wonder if Dr. Stoll would allow us to. You don't think so?
Well, no, he might.
How about Don Cole?
See, Dr. Stoll's a big Yankees fan. The fact that he would be immortalized the same way that DiMaggio and the
Mickey
Mick
Mantle
and Whitey Ford, I think he'd like that.
How about you? Could we make one of you? Could make a bobblehead?
It wouldn't be tough at all. Yeah, I do that all the time anyway.
I'd be willing if they wanted to make me a bobblehead.
Now you're saying these would be
just
premiums
for the record, not me.
Not Diana.
I just thought I'd add that.
Now, are you saying these would be premiums for people who would contribute to share? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, you could kind of pick from your line of the MBI bobbleheads.
Well, and then you give again, and then of course you get another one. You could complete your collection.
Wayne and Anita Lustria.
Get the entire set and just,
collect yours.
just watch our heads bouncing up and back.
Get the whole set, and for Christmas. Here he is, lifetime journalist. He's worked in Sacramento, Dallas, Pittsburgh, came to Chicago, hosted the morning ride from 1999 to 2013, founder of the Elfstrand Group, and a cultural affairs writer with the Illinois Family Institute, Mark Elfstrand. Mark, what goes through your mind when you hear those voices?
Well, a lot of fun times, of course, but I had to follow the inimitable Chris Fabry. And that's why today I just refer to myself as Wally the Snowflake. Do you ever hear that guy before?
Yeah, Greg has too. Yeah. The other person who came in there was Diana Berryman. She just jumped in there.
Yes.
She has spanned all of these years, Mark. Did you realize that?
Yeah, she not only has she, but she's never aged in any of that time. That's what's remarkable.
Okay, Diana, jump in here. Tell me your morning moment.
My morning moment with Mark, or just in general?
And anything you want to say. The floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. Without even going into tears, because I've been praying about this, I wouldn't even know where to begin because, I am going to start crying. I have been beyond blessed, in all seriousness, to be part of the morning shows from Bob Murphin, through you and Greg, through Mark, my dear friend Dave, the interim time, Carlin Juni, Carlin Crew, and now National. I can't even believe or fathom that was even in my tapestry of being able to do something like this. And it's just been phenomenal. And it has been a beautiful time of joy and learning. And just the listeners, that is the best part of anything with morning is the listeners. I'm telling you, it is the listeners.
They love you, Diana. They do. Okay, I want to ask you a question. I didn't ask you this before. If I could ask you this. Sorry, Greg. Bob was the first contact you had with Moody Radio. You weren't working for Moody Radio then. You were at Shadow Traffic, I think.
Correct.
Would you say you were in a different spiritual place then than you are today?
Oh, hands down. I actually was not a Christian. The call came from Monty Larrick, newsman at the time for Bob Murphin, and they were looking for some traffic and some things like that of that nature, which my company was able to, offer. And going through some of the different reporters in the morning, Moody was the only station that fit actually in my schedule. My schedule was the only one that allowed it. And I'm like, Moody, what's Moody, to be honest? And just through walking through it, came to Christ, even on the 94th floor of the observatory.
Wow.
Began working with Bob Murphin. He and his wife, Jessie, phenomenal mentors in that very precious, fragile time in my walk of faith, and really coming out of it and going into it almost alone, really. Yeah. At that time, I had no one around me, but then just morphed into my faith, and it grew. And, just following through, and lo and behold, get the call in 97. Hey, you want to join these, Greg and Chris? Because I had been working there with you guys for a while. By the time I joined you, I was a Christian, and things were beautiful, and then came across full-time to Moody.
That's a great story. Greg, what were you going to say?
I didn't know that, Diana. By the way, nice to talk to you again.
Greg!
I did not know that. No, what I wanted to ask her was, how come she had all that longevity? What gave you the lasting power? You were there. You really
stayed in her lane,
change.
Greg. She stayed in her lane. She did what she was supposed to do. Right, Diana?
Well, that's exactly it. And just like a chameleon, like through the different shows, through the different personalities, through the different hosts, again, to say how blessed and honored and joy-filled I am, I can't even put into words. I really can't.
That's great. That's so neat. I'm so glad you got on here. And now, Mark. Mark, you work with Diana for, all those years. What is your morning moment?
Well, just before I answer that question, we should mention that when Diana first told the people at Moody, I love this so much, I do it for free, they took her up on that. And that's why she's been there for so long.
That explains it.
Yes. Well, that one, the question about the Moody moment, that's not hard at all. It would come from 9/11. As I'm sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden Dave Mitchell says he wants to come on the air with me. I've got an important announcement. And then he tells me that this plane has crashed into the one of the towers at the World Trade Center. And, we're kind of all sitting there going, well, what was this? And so we have audio of that, obviously, that can be played if we wanted to hear it. But the point was that was kind of the interruption to start the morning. And then just a couple of moments later, and it was just a few moments later, he comes back and says, I have another announcement. And then there was a second plane. And I remember getting up out of my chair after that. We took a little break, and I went out to the front office, and I said, if they can do that in New York, they can do this in Washington, D.C. And by the time the news had ended, the announcement came on that, of course, a plane did go down into the Pentagon. And that whole morning shifted dramatically by 9 o'clock. We started to go into the 9 o'clock programming, but just within about 15 minutes, Bob Neff came down and said, we're not going to do this. We're going to just go. And you could tell Dr. Stoll and the whole board had come downstairs into center studio to watch the television. So nobody's mind was on whatever their business meeting was about. They all wanted to know what was happening with those planes and what was going on in New York. So it was quite the day. Wayne Shepherd came down. He joined us on air, and it was, I was there not until 9 o'clock. I was there until noon that day.
Yeah. That will change. And isn't it what the morning show is all about? It's about being able to take the detour and that one was easy. But there are detours that you take with callers. There are detours that you take with topics. One thing comes up and you follow that trail, to go on so that you're meeting the listener where they are, right?
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, the listener doesn't quite understand the dynamic of what's happening in the studio, but there's a lot of shuffling and things going around. In fact, that morning of 9/11, they must have had 7 or 8 people taking notes. People were calling in, people wondering what's going on. And, of course, other radio stations might have been covering it as a news thing. But our desire was to bring the faith component in, and that's why Dr. Stoll joined us to pray on the air. And it was just a very different dynamic and flowing only the way that live radio can.
Yeah. That's Mark Elfstrand. We are highlighting and giving a tribute to morning shows on Moody Radio through the years, all the way back to 1926 to the present. And if you go to chrisfabrylive.org, we have a special book. Our thank you is This is Moody Radio, 100 Years Proclaiming the Gospel, written by Phil Shappard and Kevin Mungans. We're sending this to you if you give a gift of any size today. It'd be a great day to hear from you. Go to chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. We are paying tribute to morning radio at Moody Radio from 1926 until the present. And I got Greg Wheatley with me in the 93 to 99. Greg and I were behind the microphones. And we picked up where Bob Murphin left off. And I want to tell a story because Mark Elfstrand told a story in the break, and this will fit in here. I don't know if you remember this, Greg, but we were out right after we had begun in it was May of 93. And we were at a concert or doing whatever in the community where they pushed us. And I remember an older woman coming up, and the look on her face was she was just abject anger and, real struggle. And she was as kind as she could be, but she really let me know, and I think you were there too, that what we were doing in the morning was just terrible, and what she wanted was Bob and his humor, and I don't get your humor, and it's a travesty, and you don't do the cup of cold. It was all the things comparing A to B, and I took it. I listened to her, and I said, that's coming from a place of pain, and it's coming from a place that she has lost something really good. So it's like I moved on from that. It hurt, but I moved on from it. 6 years later, as we're leaving, and Mark Elfstrand is about to come along, though we didn't know at the time, we were out at something, and the same lady came up to me. I didn't recognize her. And she put her hand on my arm, and she said, I need to apologize to you. And I said, what for? And she said, 6 years ago, I came up to you at one of these things, and I was ugly to you, and I was mean to you. And she said, I didn't get your humor, and I didn't like the music, and I did, all this A-B thing. And she said, but I have been praying for decades that my kids would follow in our footsteps and follow in faith. And the other day, my son called and said, Mom, did you hear what they said on Moody this morning? And she said, I had to come and apologize to you because God answered my prayer through you two goofballs. She didn't say it that way. But she said, I see what God was doing, and I was just hurting back then. And so that's the story. Now, Mark, you pick up from there because you took up after us, right?
Yeah, and of course, it's always difficult when there's a program change because you start getting cards and letters from a lot of people. And what they're saying is, why did they hire this guy? Because we like the other people. Well, sure, because that's how radio works. You develop a relationship with listeners. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody new comes on and you go, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. And then over time, people get accustomed to you, or new people come on, and that whole thing shifts. So, well, first of all, just to that point, I'm hoping that Carl and crew received that same kind of treatment that I got when no, I'm just kind of kidding you on that, but that is the reality of when you do program changes, that there's people going to be dissatisfied for a season until things just adjust. But you want me to tell my Greg Wheatley story?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I was on the air for probably only a few months, and I didn't know Greg at all, and I didn't really know you at all. And all of a sudden, I get this call from Greg saying, "Hey, why don't you come out to College Church in Wheaton? And this is where we worship. And then after the service, we'd like to invite you over for lunch." And I was like almost dumbfounded that, he had probably had his own pain with your show being, terminated at that point. And yet he was so gracious, so kind, and his wife as well, to invite me over to their home. My wife would have come. She hadn't moved out to Chicago yet. And I just loved the fellowship that we were able to have with his family.
Yeah, and that's the family aspect of this, Greg.
Well, and it is so hard. We're all sharing these same stories because we've all been there. But what a lesson to remember that as much as there is this sort of transition pain, not just for the listeners, but for us, frankly, but as much as you experience that, the lesson is, this is nothing personal. This is just the way it works. Right. And there's a real life lesson in there. So, boy, we ought to form a club, right, guys?
Right.
Former morning hosts.
God is at work. And here's another one. Here is a broadcaster, podcaster, educator. He's worked in radio in Cleveland, Chicago, Minneapolis. He hosted Mornings with Brian on WCRF. You can now see him and Lauren, his co-host, on the Third Place podcast, co-founder of Stained Glass Media. Brian Dahlen. Brian, how you doing, friend?
I am honored to be hanging out with you guys.
You know this Mark Elfstrand. He was a fellow who mentored you, right?
Yeah, the only reason I'm in radio, apart from God's sovereignty, of course, is because Mark Elfstrand took a chance and hired a high school teacher from Minneapolis to produce his morning show. And I think everybody on staff thought he was nuts for doing this. And I'm not sure how he felt, but after a while, he gave me more opportunity than I ever deserved to be on the air and to produce his show. And without his investment in me individually, I would have never been able to get in radio, ever.
What did you learn from him?
Oh, he taught me how to do anything from get out of a song to how to connect with a guest and disarm them a bit so they'd be relaxed on the air. He taught me how to communicate well. He taught me how to just do the mechanics of radio, how to handle criticism. In fact, I remember when I first started in Cleveland, I had kind of the same welcome that you all were talking about. And I wrote to Mark and to you, Chris, and I asked both of you for advice because I was barely hanging on. And you both offered some wonderful words of wisdom that you've already been sharing here.
Yeah. Mark, what do you say to Brian?
Well, there was a good reason for hiring him. We actually had to work through human resources because Brian will testify they actually rejected his application.
That's correct.
The first time around. Is that correct, Brian?
Oh, yeah. I got a rejection letter in the mail. So
yeah, which is very special. Hopefully you saved that and even framed it. But in any case, then what we actually had, I think it was Wayne Peterson who went downstairs and just said, we need to hire this guy. And so Human Resources granted permission for that. And you could tell that Brian was multi-talented, multi-gifted. And he actually had worked in some radio in terms of a station in Minneapolis, and that's how we got connected. And so once he came on board, I mean, he proved himself so capable in so many areas so quickly. And not only that, but he's got a great sense of humor. And he just had a lot of kids, which I'm sure gave him his sense of humor.
And a donkey and goats and all that.
Right.
Okay, and so the lesson there is find somebody who believes in you. Find somebody who can lift you up. So Brian, what is your morning moment?
Well, I mean, the moment for me is more of a concept, and it's how much the people I worked with over the years invested in me and mattered to me. Now, of course, everybody brings up listener connections, and that's really important. But radio is such an intimate medium where there's just a small group of us spending hours and hours having deep conversation in front of people, and you develop friendships that'll last a lifetime. For me here in Cleveland, it'll be Ron and Daria and Lauren. But at the same time, I'll never forget all the people that invested in me when I was working at WNBI as well.
Right. And there's so much that we're seeing on Facebook about that kind of thing. Jean says, as I got our kiddos ready for school, we all listened to Bob Murphin. Two of my fondest memories are the Chicago winning the best Chicago morning radio team and Bob singing "O Lutefisk." Great times, which takes us to the humor thing. Because Brian, people, they need the information, they need the deep communication, but they also need to laugh. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I already felt that just in who I am as a person, how God made me. But I saw Mark and Dave in Chicago just lean into that. I remember when Mark aired an intentionally horrible version of "Oh Holy Night" by a guy who, you can find it on YouTube, that he just butchered it on purpose. And oh, did we laugh so hard. And I tried to pick up some of that and just be real and help people start their day with serious conversation, but also as much laughing as we can possibly get.
The other thing that happens here is, and you mentioned 9/11, Mark, and that is the warp and woof of life, the real losses, because we heard Dave Mitchell's voice a few minutes ago, but he's no longer with us. We can't call him up. And you walked through that, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was Brian who called me. I was at a movie theater at the time, and this is several years ago now, but he said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, well, I'm in a movie, so what is it? And he said, well, we just lost Dave Mitchell. And I go, what? And he said, yeah, he was involved in a car accident this morning in Indiana. And then things began to filter out throughout the morning. And Dave had gone to play hockey that morning, and it was a Sunday morning early before church. And then he started to feel some tightness in his chest, but he just thought that he was having muscle tightening. Got in his car and went down I-65, and then his heart gave out on him, and he sort of slid into the embankment there, embankment on the side, and the car came to a stop. But they could not revive him. So it was just an incredibly sad loss for us. And I remember going to the funeral afterwards, and we were kind of all standing around in disbelief on that. But that is truly the ups and downs of life. After our time at Moody, Dave and I would get together about every 3 months and just kind of catch up and such. So, that was a lost friend.
Well, I want to thank you both for your work, and what you did, and what you continue to do, being you. And I wanted to include both of you in this tribute because you're part of Moody Radio's 100 years proclaiming the gospel, being there in the trenches every morning. Brian, Dahlen, thank you for doing that today.
Thanks for having me a part of this conversation. I'm honored.
And you as well, my friend, Mark Elfstrand, even though you took over for us, I'm so glad for what you and Dave and the crew and Monty and the others there, what you accomplished in those years.
We shouldn't forget Monty. Yeah, I still maintain a friendship, and we have lunch now and then, and he's doing well. So, by the way, Chris, I should mention, based on your earlier segment, I wear a size 12 shoe, in case you were wondering.
Now we know from Mark Elfstrand, we're giving a tribute to Moody Radio, 100 years proclaiming the gospel. I have one more guest. Greg Wheatley continues with me here at the back fence. If you go to the website, chrisfabrylive.org, many of the people that you're hearing here today, their pictures, their interesting information is in this new book. This is Moody Radio. It's our featured resource. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. I made a list of some of the folks who have been on Moody Radio through the years, some in the local area and some nationally. Dawn and Steve in Nashville, Dee and Scott in Spokane, Eric and Bridget in Florida, Kelly and Steve in Indianapolis, Harry and Shauna in Grand Rapids, Tom and Tavi in Chattanooga, Seth and Deb, Quad Cities. And it's like, I can't have everybody on, but I wanted to just say the names today because you are a part of this past 100 years and what has been done. God has worked through what you have done, all of us together. And there's one other team, Kurt and Kate in Florida. I got Kurt Goff with me. He's was in TV news for more than a decade, then came to Chicago, took up the program where Mike Kellogg left off, then went down with Kate to host Kurt and Kate Mornings, the Kurt and Kate Cavalcade. Kurt Goff, how you doing today?
Kurt and Kate Cavalcade. That would have been a better name for the show than Kurt and Kate Mornings. I like it.
It just came to me. Is this just keep the alliteration going? Okay, I want to read from page 151 of This Is Moody Radio. Folks, you got to get this. It's a quote from Bob Murphin, who for many, in Chicago, he was just a staple there. He said, I learned a long time ago that people are what are important. People are what are important. In radio, it's people, not programs, not fancy little dilly-dally things, but it's people, and you communicate with people. People know that you either love or you don't love them, or you care or you don't care. Kurt, do you agree with that?
Boy, I agree with that 100%. And, the superpower of radio, even in a digital age, and podcasting, that's great. All the digital stuff, the video, the YouTube, and all of that is great. But something that radio has always done so well is to connect one-on-one with people. And you don't have that interruption or the distraction of video or what have you. But it just kind of focuses on the heart. It's like everything falls away, and there's an intimacy about this. And Chris, I think you've talked about this on your program before. You know it, you live it. There's an intimacy about being one-on-one with people, one person at a time, even though there are many people listening, that none of the other platforms can reproduce. You can tell I'm a big fan of radio, can't you?
Sure can. Okay, so what is your morning moment that comes to mind?
Wow. It is so hard. That is a difficult question, as others have been mentioning on the show today, to choose one moment, because really it's a collection of moments. But I think that you hit on something that is very powerful, and that is community. And it's a matter of connecting with your listeners. And I know with Kurt and Kate Mornings, even overnight, Kurt Goff Live, when I was in Chicago, God built communities there, and it was not just a matter of a show. We call it a show or what have you, but it's not that. It's really an ongoing conversation day by day. But it's walking with people through the challenges of life, and part of that is when you just bear down and you walk with others and you pray for them. For instance, one of the things that we loved to do was have somebody just call in and follow the lead of the Holy Spirit. I mean, it's totally His leading, and someone would share something, and then, as you know, then God would just kind of put His finger on that, put it on the hearts of other people. We'd have a call to action. Maybe somebody was in a crisis, really needed some believers to surround them and pray for them. And that's what being the body of Christ is all about. And then the other part of it is laughing together. Yeah, it's okay to laugh. And sometimes that's the greatest gift you can give someone is a laugh. And I always said, you can laugh at me or laugh with me as long as you're laughing. That's a pretty good thing.
Before the program, Greg, I told Greg, my goal every morning, 2.5 hours or however long it was to make him laugh. I just wanted on the air to make him laugh. If I could do that, I'd been a success that morning. Greg, did you ever laugh?
Oh yeah, and maybe at him and maybe with him sometimes.
Yes.
A little bit of both. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there's that vulnerability. There's the authenticity and the vulnerability, and there's a fine line that you walk there, Kurt, but of identifying with the listeners, but then inviting them in. And that takes you a little level deeper into their heart, right?
Oh, boy, you described it so well. When we are real people, which we are, and we have real personalities, when you laugh and when you talk about real life, that just, you build bridges. I call those bridge building segments. And basically you're building a bridge to somebody else's heart. And as you do that, then you get to know them. It's like building any other friendship. And then suddenly, we talk about the most important things, the biblical things, the spiritual things as believers. It's very natural because it's a part of who we really are. But when you laugh, it's amazing how disarming that can be. And we know a cheerful heart is good like medicine, and, a cheerful heart is a continual feast, it says in Proverbs. So I like to capitalize on that, but it's the range of emotions, really. And again, I get back to the medium of radio. There's nothing like live radio either. It's like God working in real time. You see his hand move, and everybody sees it who's listening at that particular moment. And it's faith-building, and, God, how the Holy Spirit can apply whatever's happening on the radio to many different people in many different situations.
Barbara wrote this in 2002. My sister's newborn had open heart surgery. My father started chemo a week later. My mom became ill with a 19-month ordeal, 6 surgeries. So she goes on to say, I was in utter physical, emotional, and spiritual exhaustion. One morning, I was having trouble waking up and getting started. Moody Radio Cleveland's Mark Zimmerman was a mainstay in my mornings for years after Bob Devine. And that lowest of mornings, he was addressing trials and tribulations and said something to the effect that as believers, we bear one another's burdens and we do not struggle alone. We stand on the prayers of those who care for us. It was exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm so glad that Mark was there in 2002. I'm so glad that, Kurt, that you have been there for many people in that same situation. You had no idea what was going on in their heart, but you were able to give them the truth that God was there, was walking through that with them, was a shepherd of their heart. And it's still going on today on Moody Radio Mornings. Carl and Allie and Diana and Young Thunder, and I hope you'll listen. But I wanted to pay tribute to those whose shoulders we all stand on. Thank you, Kurt. Greg, thank you. And if you go to the website, chrisfabrylive.org, I would love to send you a copy of this book. This is Moody Radio, 100 Years Proclaiming the Gospel. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. Our program is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute. Thanks for listening.